Hello everyone and welcome to Timeless Storytelling. I will be talking to you a lot throughout the course of this course. So this is a free course I'm throwing up on YouTube. I am an internationally award-winning screenwriter, director, and filmmaker. I have won awards on every continent at this point except for Antarctica. I'm hoping to start a film festival up there at some point and bring something down just so I can get all 7 done. But I have studied a lot from really talented writers. I've worked with Aaron Sorkin. I've worked with somebody by the name of Tyler Mowry. He's a very genius screenwriter. I've also had a lot of interactions with Robert McKee, who is known as the screenwriting guy for Hollywood. He wrote a book called Story. He also wrote another book on dialogue. So I have utilized a lot of these different sources to create really high quality screenplays. And what the screenplays have done, they've made tremendous remarks around the world. The books that they were converted into have also won lots of awards. So just want to tell you guys kind of exactly how to tell a story that lasts forever. What makes something timeless? If we take marketing out of the equation and we focus on just creating a really good story for people to really enjoy, what does that really come down to? And if you really think about this, it'll market itself. Good writing is like cream and it floats to the top. So if I show you a really great scene, the greatest movie of all time in front of you, and it's just you're gonna go tell everybody about that film. You're not gonna just let it pass. Whereas if I have millions of dollars to throw at all this marketing, but the story sucks, it's not going anywhere. So the most important thing that writers really need to realize is we need to look at our script, at our story, as a sculpture, okay? Our idea right now is a block of rock, okay? It might be a genius idea, it might be a great idea, but everybody has ideas. And I get pitched ideas all the time of these people who tell me these brilliant, great ideas. And they're like, can you do it for me? I'm like, I already have 15 other things I have to write that are my own, let alone yours. And you're trying to get me to do it for free. So there's no way. So this is how you do it. The first thing that you have to do is what I say, constructing the spine, okay? The philosophical conflict is your spine of your story. It is the thing that holds your whole story together. If you do not have this, you have a lump of meat on the floor. Okay? It's boring. Nothing really gets done. So what is philosophical conflict? Philosophical conflict is the structure of differing viewpoints that you can have around a major moral dilemma. Oftentimes, this is often known as a moral dilemma. So you have 2 opposing aspects that bring out a truth of the universe. And I'll be very specific about this, okay? So let's give some examples. On one side of this, you have one viewpoint, and on the opposing side, you have another viewpoint. Both of these are going to have positive and negative attributes. So let's use an example, okay? Acceptance versus rejection. Okay? It's a great one, right? I had a student actually come up to me and talk to me about this one recently. Acceptance versus rejection. So if we look at acceptance, people look at that and they think it's an inherently positive word. Well, it's not always positive. What if you get accepted to a school that you really wanted to, and then when you get there, the whole academic program that you were trying to get into actually closes down for the year. So now you're at this school, you're paying all this money, and the acceptance didn't really matter. And rejection isn't always a bad thing either. What if you were dating a really terrible person and you get rejected by them? And then you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't know all these attributes about them and they were really terrible. So that's actually a positive way to be rejected, okay? When you take a philosophical conflict, what you want to do is every single scene in your film is related to this concept. The characters are either here or they're here emotionally. Now they can debate things or they can talk about different things. They're not talking about being accepted. They don't talk about being rejected, but that's the experience that they go through, okay? So if we continue this, we can do this with pretty much everything. Living in the present. Or living in the past or future. This is actually what my screenplay is about, okay? The King of Hell is about this. The character is trapped in his head, and so he's always living in either the past or an imagined future that has yet to happen. He needs to be constantly living in the now, and that inability to do so always made him unhappy. Now, if we look at some aspects of how living in the now can actually hurt you, well, maybe the world around you is blowing up. You kind of have to live in the now to get out of it, but it doesn't mean that it's a positive experience for you, okay? Living in the past or the future, you can live in your fantasy. Fantasy's fun. Sometimes fantasy has a really, really positive intent to it, but it doesn't mean that it's the way actual things go. Now, the thing about philosophical conflict is that you're not actually going to notice this when you watch a movie, okay? If you're not an experienced writer, no one's ever gonna go, oh, the philosophical conflict of this film is acceptance versus rejection. Wow, how interesting and unique. It's never gonna be like that. What it's actually going to be more like is it creates a sense of perspective, okay? So now, as an audience member, if I remember the time recently in my life where I was accepted, and then I watched somebody get accepted in a film, I can put myself in that character's shoes because emotionally and philosophically, I see myself as them. We mirror each other, okay? And what a great writer does is they create characters that are so deeply meaningful that they actually bring people who are the audience members and put them in their shoes. So if I'm having somebody get brutally murdered, I might not have ever experienced that experience of being murdered. However, I know what the experience of being accused of something that I didn't do feels like. Oh, okay, so now we take the murder and we put it in that context. What does it feel like to be accused of being a murderer or something like that? Oh, wow. Now I know what accusation feels like. I can relate to that. And that's the key to the philosophical conflict or the moral dilemma. So, other options, this is a never-ending thing. People will point out and say good versus evil. Now, the problem with good versus evil is, to most people, it sounds really boring. It sounds like nothing really is happening. It's like, oh, the bad guys and the good guys, and we're the good guys, and we want to be on the side of the good guys. But that's not really accurate to how these things go. And when a writer does good versus evil, it oftentimes feels overly simplistic, and it doesn't actually make progress for the character's journey outside of them being perfect and the other people being purely awful and evil. And I would actually argue that a lot of the conflicts in our society are based around this concept that in our tribalistic nature, when we think that, oh, I'm a Republican, oh, I'm a Democrat, I have my tribe, I have my group, your group is over here, you're evil. Now, you see, if we go, instead of taking good versus evil, we make it about tribalism. Ooh, okay, what's the difference in both sides of tribalism? Okay, so you have tribalism, which is being a part of your group, trying to fit in, and individualism. Okay? Look how much more complex the same issue is. Now, with this tribalistic intent, people who are in the tribe can see people who are different than them, even if they're just being individuals, as evil, because you're not a part of my group. And vice versa, they can see us as evil in our group, okay? And then individualism focuses on what does an individual's actions and choices do. So if you're using this as a philosophical conflict, for example, if you have characters who are tribalistic in nature, their actions and their choices are determined, especially if you're not doing a positive change arc overall, but especially at the beginning of your story, if you are doing a positive change arc, their decisions are always based off of what the tribe around them thinks. It's not that they're making their own decisions for their own moral compass or for their own heart. They're making their decisions because they want to fit in with the group, okay? Maybe they actually like this one person. They really enjoy this one person's company, but the entire friend group that they have doesn't like that person. So what are they going to do? They're going to cut off contact with them because they want to fit into the tribe. Whereas somebody who acts more individualistically doesn't judge people based off of what group they're in. They're more concerned about the character of the individual. So oftentimes when individualistic people meet somebody who's a little more tribalistic, they find them to be kind of repulsive because they don't have any personality of their own. And so this creates a very, very natural conflict that pushes the whole story forward. If you create this spinal column for your story before you do anything else, you set yourself up for greatness. And the reason why is this is your core circle. Every story at the end of the day is just a circle, okay? It starts here and goes around to the bottom. This is your midpoint, and that comes back around to the top, all right? That's your story. Every story follows this structure. This line right here is your spinal column. Yes, there are beats and moments along the way, which we will get into and talk about in explicit detail. But for now, this core line is your spinal column. And so long as you know what the point of your story is, if you're sticking with the tribalism versus individualism, for example, if you want it to end happy, maybe the characters become more individualistic, the tribalistic characters. Maybe they become more accepting to other tribes. Maybe it ends negatively, and the person who's the individual succumbs to being a part of the tribe. Something like Clockwork Orange is very similar with that, okay? Every story that is scoring above a 7.0 on IMDb has this. If it does not have this, I guarantee you things fall short, because what ends up happening in that circumstance, if you don't use it, is these moments right here. So if I take this section and I don't have a spine and I just have the two individual plot points, this is all loose inside these two, okay? This is loose, meaning there's no point of it. So what I'm gonna do as a writer without this is I'm gonna throw random things. You're like, oh, well, I like scene A and scene C, but scene B, And then you skip past it. And you're like, okay, I'm just gonna write this here, this here, this here to fill the plot points, plot. We're now in plot C. And then when somebody reads it, they stop reading at plot point B because it's boring, even though A and C were amazing. So that's why you need the philosophical conflict. Because, and here's the other element, if you have it and you fall short in this area, so you fall short in section B over here, okay, this isn't good enough, it's still connected to C and it's not loose. So what ends up happening is you go, oh, I can just pull B back to my philosophical conflict about tribalism and individualism. Oh, this random scene where the dad doesn't get along with him and the dad's just mean and he's just rude and that's it. And there's no plot. There's nothing that actually advances character development. It just goes, hey, guess what? They're not getting along. They're not happy. And they do this to tell the audience. It's a delivery of the plot. Keep the philosophical conflict because it allows you to reduce the number of drafts you ultimately end up writing. Oftentimes, a lot of the people I meet who don't do the philosophical conflict have to go through about 20 or so drafts before their script is even production ready. And the ones that are actually able to use the philosophical conflict typically go between 7 and 10 drafts before they're actually ready. So it's a lot easier to make positive momentum because you have this core structure. Think of this not only like your spinal column, but if you're building a house, it's the foundation. It's the core. If you don't have a solid foundation, the meaning of your story means absolutely nothing, okay? So please, if you are a writer and you are interested in writing, please add your philosophical conflict. It is one of the most important things that you will ever do. Thank you guys, and on to the next lesson.